Neymar returns for Brazil. He finds space. A golden chance right here, looking for the finish. It is Neymar, 1-0 for the Brazilian squad. Here we go. A slight pocket of space to sprint into, and he rarely misses from this range. The Brazilian star strikes. This is his moment. Neymar ties the game. Imagine if Neymar actually lifted the World Cup with the Brazilian team. I know it sounds crazy right now, but just hear me out. For years, fans saw Neymar as the prince who never took the throne. The soccer prodigy destined to rule the game after Messi and Ronaldo. He delivered the goals, the viral highlights, the trophies, and the worldwide fame. But mostly he possessed an aura totally different from other modern soccer superstars. He played with pure joy, blending elite numbers with that classic street football magic everyone expects from Brazil. The street tricks, the bold dribbling, the raw creativity. He had an aura Vini simply lacked. Honestly, a one-legged Neymar playing for Santos beats the current version of Vini any day. But his career path shifted everything, especially after leaving Barcelona for PSG in 2017 on a world record transfer fee. The legacy debate got complicated. Critics fixated on his injuries, the wild party lifestyle, and the brutal fact that he never won a Ballon d'Or. Fans labeled him as wasted potential instead of respecting how incredible his prime truly was. That is exactly why the 2026 World Cup defines his legacy. If Neymar somehow lifts that massive trophy for Brazil, the narrative around his entire career flips instantly. Because in Brazil, absolutely nothing beats the World Cup. Sure, a certain fan base tries to say it is just a short 7-game tournament, but the rest of the global football community strongly disagrees. Winning the tournament instantly places Neymar right beside icons like Pelé, Garrincha, Romario, Ronaldo Nazario, and Ronaldinho inside Brazilian soccer mythology. It would crush the narrative that his club career fell short. But honestly, even without a World Cup medal, Neymar leaves a massive legacy in global football. While pundits argue over trophies, transfers, and celebrity dating rumors, an entire generation of kids treat him as their absolute soccer idol. For young stars today, Neymar stands for pure creativity and freedom in a modern football era, obsessed with rigid tactics. He looked like a magician surrounded by robots. You see his impact everywhere now. Lamine Yamal openly admits Neymar was his biggest inspiration growing up. Yamal explained that while Messi amazed people, Neymar connected emotionally. He made the sport look fun, expressive, and completely unpredictable. It hit differently for young fans and rising academy players. You find that exact same influence in France with Desire Du. The young PSG star openly admits Neymar inspired his playing style more than anyone else. You see it instantly in the quick step-overs, the flashy flair, the swagger, and the celebrations. The creative edge of Du's game carries Neymar's fingerprints all over it. That is why the Brazilian's legacy stretches way beyond basic goal stats. He proved to the world that elite football could still be expressive, highly emotional, and wildly entertaining. And that cultural influence will easily outlast any debate about shiny trophies. Still, I always have to remind fans that Neymar was never just a flashy TikTok edit. He racked up over 700 goal contributions, stacked with trophies and huge individual awards. Right now, you might be thinking, Ped, that is never happening. The poor guy could pull a muscle just stepping off the team bus. Look, you are not totally wrong, but the fact we are even discussing this comeback is huge, because many fans, myself included, seriously doubted Carlo Ancelotti would ever call him up for the international squad. That is exactly why May 18th, 2026 turned into a massive emotional milestone for Brazilian soccer. Down in Rio de Janeiro, hundreds of tense fans gathered to hear Carlo Ancelotti name Brazil's final roster for the 2026 World Cup. Crowds stood around nervously refreshing phones, scrolling their feeds, desperately hoping to hear one specific name called Neymar Jr. And then it happened. When Ancelotti finally read his name, the streets absolutely exploded into wild celebration. Fans screamed, strangers hugged, and people waved massive flags, acting like Brazil just won the entire tournament. Behind closed doors, the emotion hit Neymar even harder. The superstar had not worn the national jersey since tearing his ACL back in October 2023. For 3 long years, critics heavily doubted his fitness, questioned his club future, and wondered if he could ever reach elite competitive levels again. Viral clips showed Neymar sitting nervously on his couch with family and close friends during the announcement. The second his selection became official, he just completely broke down. Gripping his phone in tears, he called his father, sobbing and repeating, "We made it, Dad. We did it." Later, he phoned teammate Raphinha and boldly promised, "We are together, we are winning this whole tournament." Friends later revealed that Neymar spent hours crying that afternoon. The brutal physical rehab and severe emotional toll of his long injury recovery had finally poured out. Making this World Cup roster was never just another standard tournament selection. It meant everything. It felt like the ultimate reward for surviving the absolute darkest chapter of his professional career. That raw emotion makes his 2026 World Cup comeback story feel incredibly powerful. For over 10 years, Neymar lived in this weird space between true greatness and unfulfilled destiny. Everyone respects the pure talent. Everyone sees the magic, but fans always felt like one huge piece was missing from his legacy. Now he gets one more shot, one final dance. If Neymar somehow holds up that World Cup trophy in 2026, it completes the most dramatic, emotional international career in football history. Neymar's history with the Brazilian national team is rarely simple. On one hand, you have the insane stats. He is already Brazil's all-time leading scorer, pushing him past icons who once seemed absolutely untouchable in Brazilian football history. For over 10 years, his attacking output across every major tournament has been elite. Yet despite the records, his international career is an endless cycle of heartbreak. Some of these moments just feel downright cruel. The biggest tragedy naturally hit during the 2014 World Cup in Brazil. At just 22, Neymar carried the expectations of an entire nation. They desperately needed his flair, his goals, and honestly, just hope. He delivered, burying 4 goals and dragging an otherwise average squad straight to the quarterfinals. Brazilian star Neymar. Is this his big moment? Neymar levels it up for Brazil. He is the main man today. Great play by Luis Gustavo. Brazil find the net. They left him a small corridor to run into, and he rarely misses when given that exact kind of chance. Then it all fell apart in seconds. Later against Colombia, Juan Camilo Zuniga drove his knee straight into Neymar's lower spine. Neymar dropped to the turf in agony. He was absolutely terrified. Suddenly, he could not feel his legs. As panicked teammates rushed over, Neymar kept repeating one thing: "I cannot feel my legs." The damage was terrifyingly real. Medical scans quickly confirmed that Neymar had fractured a vertebra right in his spine. You want to know the darkest part? That knee strike landed just centimeters away from leaving him permanently paralyzed. One slight shift in the impact, and his entire life changes forever. So, instead of dragging his country deeper into the World Cup, he sat helplessly at home. He watched a broken Brazilian squad crumble 7-1 against Germany in football's absolute darkest hour. That shot of Neymar crying on the stretcher perfectly summed up his international career. Pure magic, derailed by agonizing pain. Fast forward to the 2021 Copa America. Back on home soil, he was completely unplayable, scoring goals, serving up assists, and willing Brazil to a final against Argentina at the Maracanã. But once again, it ended in pure heartbreak. He was the best player on the grass. Still, Argentina sneaked a 1-0 win through Angel Di Maria, leaving Neymar completely crushed on home turf. The final whistle blew, and he just dropped to the dirt crying. But the defining memory wasn't bitterness. It was that raw, quiet moment he shared with Lionel Messi. Swallowing his own pain, Neymar walked over and hugged his former teammate. He knew his brother had finally lifted a major international trophy. Long after the crowds left, the two just sat together in the Marana tunnel, quietly chatting and laughing about the game. He posted online later, admitting the defeat destroyed him, but that he was genuinely thrilled for his brother Leo. Then came Qatar 2022. For most fans, this was the absolute peak of Neymar's tragic brilliance. Deep into extra time during a scoreless quarter-final against Croatia, he pulled off a sequence of pure footballing magic. Into Neymar. A real chance here. He gets the return pass. It is Neymar, 1-0 Brazil. It felt like the defining strike to finally drag this team into a World Cup semi-final. The celebration was incredibly heavy. That shot tied him with Pelé's official Brazilian scoring record. But then, total disaster. Croatia leveled it with their only shot on target. Minutes later, Brazil crashed out on penalties. Slated for the crucial 5th penalty, Neymar never even took a swing. The shootout ended before they called his number. Speaking later, he said the silent bus ride back to the team hotel felt exactly like attending his own funeral. He sat totally isolated, surrounded by crying relatives, convinced his ultimate football dreams were dead. This is why the 2026 World Cup carries so much weight. It is one final shot to turn a decade of painful near misses into the perfect ending. But honestly, we need to face reality. This is not the exact same player we watched in Qatar. Frankly, he is not even the same guy from his last PSG campaign, and he is definitely not that electric teenager who completely dismantled Spain in the Confederation Cup. Endless tackles, surgeries, and brutal physical punishment have robbed him of the raw, twitchy speed that once made him an absolute nightmare to defend. Man is essentially playing without knees, meaning that lethal first step is gone. Those 50-yard solo runs are rare now. His legs simply cannot survive modern football the way they used to. Yet despite the physical toll, he still cooks up pure magic back at Santos. Following the club's first ever relegation in 2023, the team spent years frantically trying to survive in Brazil's top flight. By late 2025, the squad was battling another historic disaster. That is when he made a choice that permanently changed how Brazilian fans viewed him. Despite fighting through a highly damaged knee and meniscus, a damage that doctors heavily insisted needed immediate surgery. But Neymar flat out refused to ditch his boyhood club during a vicious relegation scrap. Instead, he chose to grind through agonizing pain to keep Santos breathing. And miraculously, he completely dominated the match against Ashport. He buried the opening goal, then set up another in a huge 3-0 victory. Then came a must-win clash against Juventus. Neymar fired back with a ridiculous 17-minute hat-trick. It marked his first hat-trick since PSG in 2022. The crowd was incredibly moved, mainly because everyone in the stadium knew his knee was essentially holding on by a thread. On the final match day, he stepped up again to smash Cruzeiro. That massive victory locked in Santos' survival and secured a 12th place finish on the table. The whistle blew, and he sank to the pitch in tears. He had only pushed through 19 league matches that entire season, but still bagged 8 crucial goals, dragging Santos through some of the darkest days in their modern era. Later on, Neymar confessed his body was practically falling apart. He admitted that without family and friends backing him, he probably wouldn't have survived the season, thanks to the relentless knee pain. Even in 2026, the injuries kept haunting him. Early in the 2026 season, he racked up goals and assists until another calf injury completely derailed his momentum yet again. This is why Neymar remains Brazil's most debated superstar. Some fans think his body is just done at the absolute highest level. Critics point out his missing explosive pace, the endless injuries, and those moments where he still snaps at fans or gets defensive over criticism. Many think bringing him to the World Cup is pure nostalgia, not football reality. But his loyalists view the whole thing entirely differently. They argue a half-fit Neymar is still the most naturally gifted Brazilian alive. They note Santos was a broken squad with zero creative spark, yet Neymar remained their sole flash of genius and attacking threat, all while playing through intense pain. Fans also agree that the other Brazilian forwards like Vini and Raphinha are fantastic players, but neither can match peak Neymar's raw flair and vision. And this is exactly where Carlo Ancelotti, the famous eyebrow man, becomes crucial. Ancelotti reportedly told Neymar, straight up, the 2026 Brazil squad would run very differently than past generations. Neymar was no longer the automatic captain. He wasn't guaranteed a starting spot just because of his superstar name either. Surprisingly, Neymar took those terms with massive humility. Honestly, this fresh national team setup actually works in his favour. For the first time ever on the international stage, Neymar doesn't have to carry Brazil alone. He is surrounded by elite attacking firepower. Vini has struggled in a Brazil shirt, sure, but with his sheer quality, you always stay optimistic. Then there is Raphinha hitting his absolute prime, shining at Barca for 2 seasons. Plus Mats Cunha, who had a really solid run at Manchester United. You also have young talents like Endre and Ryan injecting pace and absolute chaos. This lets Neymar evolve. Instead of battling physically for 90 minutes, he becomes a specialist weapon. A guy who steps on the pitch for 30 minutes, or maybe just 15. He slows the tempo, breaks defensive lines with one magic pass, and brings ice-cold calmness to penalty shootouts. And maybe that's the most fascinating piece of Neymar's final World Cup. He doesn't have to play the exhausting superhero role anymore. Brazil might just need him to be Neymar, exactly at the perfect moment. Right now, one of Neymar's old teammates is also hunting for another World Cup trophy, and that guy is Kylian Mbappe. Want to know how winning that tournament would rewrite his entire football legacy? Go ahead and click this video right here.